And I think it's really interesting because Little Red Riding Hood saw the wolf earlier, so she could recognize that it was a stranger. Then she sees this wolf dressed as his granny, and she knows that there's something different enough that she starts asking a series of questions. Like, wait a second, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And the wolf in the story comes across super certain and deflects every time. So, your eyes are big. Oh, better to see you with. So this gentle...
Love bombing.
Yes, exactly.
It is, yeah.
This very gentle response.
Big hands, better to hug you with.
That's right.
And really dismissive of her observation. So we have a bunch of stuff. We have love bombing, we have dismissive behavior, and we have this certainty, this confidence. And we're twisting the story to meet our needs. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to kind of look through those a little bit.
Hi, welcome to Prey vs. Predator, the podcast. We are a coercive control, recovery, and education podcast where we are enabling and arming the prey of the world to look out and be on guard against the predators that are trying to get them and eat them and spit them out. So my name is Amber. I am happy and joyful to be here. Who else do we have here?
I am Jill, and I have to say, Amber, you used the word enarming, and I've never heard that word before.
Enarming, is that a new word?
Sort of made me chuckle. Thanks for opening that up.
Amber's Dictionary.
Yeah, that's right.
Amber's Dictionary.
PJ.
And I'm PJ, and I am also delighted to be here and so happy and thankful for our listeners. Please send us any questions you have. We are always excited to hear your thoughts and feedback on our podcast.
Yes, and please like us because
please like us.
Please like us on our social media handle. Follow us. We, this takes some work and this takes some effort, and we love doing it. But the resources can thin out. So the more you can sustain us with your encouragement or even reaching out to us or joining our Patreon, we'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And share this. Share these podcasts or insights that you might learn. Hopefully you learn.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about a fable, a fairy tale from when we were young. Little Red Riding Hood. Amber, you had mentioned that it's so interesting, the connection between many of our fairy tales and what we do on Prey versus Predator.
Yeah.
Talk more about that.
Yeah, I was interacting with a person in my professional life, and they essentially were really rude to me. Very angry, very rude. They said the most diminishing and unkind things. But at the same time, acting like I had incredibly hurt them. And I hadn't. I'm just listening to them. So they were attacking me because I was working with one of their children, at the same time being incredibly punitive to me with their words and acting like I was victimizing them.
Right.
So it was such a weird situation to sit with the two sides of that. It's like they're attacking me and at the same time telling me I'm victimized, like they're the victim.
They're being attacked.
Yeah,
they're
attacking and
while
being
telling
attacked.
you that you are attacking them.
Yeah, and I kind of just stood there and went, like I don't understand how that's possible. And it made me reflect on a lot of our fables and fairy tales, and it made me think of Little Red Riding Hood, which was one of my favorite fairy tales as a child. So let me read the little story to us.
Yeah, please do.
The Little Red Riding Hood. This is the Wikipedia version. The story centers around a girl named Little Red Riding Hood who wears a red hooded cape. The girl walks through the woods to deliver food to her sickly grandmother. A stalking wolf wants to eat the little girl and the food in the basket. After he inquires as to where she is going, she tells him. He suggested that she pick some flowers as a present for her grandmother, which she does. As she does so, he goes to the grandmother's house and gains entry by pretending to be Red Riding Hood. He swallows the grandmother whole and waits for the girl, disguised as the grandmother. When the girl arrives, she notices the strange appearance of her grandmother. She says, "What a deep voice you have." "The better to greet you with," responds the wolf. Goodness, what big eyes you have. The better to see you with, responds the wolf. And what big hands you have. The better to embrace you with, responds the wolf. Lastly, what a big mouth you have. The better to eat you with, he responds, at which point the wolf jumps out of bed and eats her. Then he falls asleep.
Thank you, Grimm brothers.
The end.
Weird stories. So I would say one of the morals of these stories is to never trust a stranger, things like that. But I would say never trust a wolf dressed as a granny.
That is deep.
And the thing is that Little Red Riding Hood thought it was her grandma. So she didn't know that it was a stranger.
No.
She thought that it was grandma.
She thought it was grandma, but she did have some inkling of doubt.
Well, so I would love to talk about the idea that, this is where part of predatory behavior is like a con man, right? The con man is short for confidence man. Mm. And I think it's really interesting because Little Red Riding Hood saw the wolf earlier, so she could recognize that it was a stranger. She could see what he looked like. Then she sees this wolf dressed as his granny, and she knows that there's something different enough that she starts asking a series of questions. Like, wait a second, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And the wolf in the story comes across super certain. Mm. And deflects every time. So, your eyes are big. Oh, better to see you with. So this gentle...
Love bombing.
Yes, exactly.
It is, yeah.
This very gentle response.
Big hands, better to hug you with.
That's right.
And really dismissive of her observation. So we have a bunch of stuff. We have love bombing. We have dismissive behavior. And we have this certainty, this confidence. And we're twisting the story to meet our needs. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to kind of look through those a little bit, talk about those.
So interesting.
Well, I think too that often I've noticed these powerful people who have amazing legions of people who worship them or follow them around are the ones who are acting like they are so victimized in this world. Whereas if you're a true victim, they're the ones who are seeking to empower themselves. Mm. And you have these people that are big bad wolves. Oh, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me.
Mm-hmm. I'm just a little sick granny.
Yeah, and I am going to swallow people whole, but poor me, my stomach is really full.
Right.
So I feel really victimized. And I feel like it's a kind of, there's more power in being the victim if you are coming from a wolf or a predatory place.
Oh, there definitely is more power in being a victim.
Yeah. How do we speak into that? Like, do you notice that in your situations, in life, in predatory relationships?
Well, I mean, going back to the story a little bit, if you think about the moral of the story, like don't trust strangers, but I think if we look at it as don't trust people who have the following traits, like
good.
Dismiss, like when you have an inkling that something is wrong, that the person dismisses it, or that they maybe gloss over it with something that is lovely, right? Like, oh, yeah. What yes, I might look different, but let's not look at that right now. Let's not deal with that. Let's just move on to my topic of conversation, which is, how wonderful I am.
How wonderful you are. Let's talk about you. Enough about me. Let's talk about you.
So there's this gloss. So there's like a reversal type energy there, and then there's this idea of love bombing, and then there's this idea of how confident they are in how they present themselves, and then you're adding another one, which is like then there's a victimization a lot of times, but we don't really see that in the story so much.
No, but it makes me think of like I've been in situations where I've had to deal with people who, like I said in the story in the beginning, where you've got this parent who was attacking me in a very vicious way, but at the same time playing the victim in a very like meek and mild, oh, I'm so frail, I'm so whatever. And it's really, to an outside observer, if you're just kind of sitting there figuring out how to handle this situation, they may do look like a victim because they might be weeping and crying, but they're attacking on all sides. And I would say they are a wolf, but they don't, I don't know if they see themselves as a wolf, but they are viciously and maniacally taking apart somebody else in order to feed their narrative or feed their story.
That's what M. Scott Peck says in the book People of the Lie. He says that's what essentially breeds evil human behavior, is protecting the ego at all costs and developing the narrative so that the ego must be protected. So, yeah, Peck would agree.
Yeah, so that's interesting about playing a victim versus being a victim.
Right.
Like how do you know someone really truly is a victim? Because like I said, somebody could walk into the room and see somebody huddled in the corner crying, but they are the attacker.
Yeah.
You know, how do we even figure out? Or do you have stories that would maybe illustrate them, how somebody is maybe a real victim versus playing a victim?
The story that popped into my mind is the story, and I don't remember what city this happened, and many of the details other than there was a young woman who was walking home from a party. She was particularly inebriated, found herself in an alleyway and kind of woke up being sexually assaulted by a young man. Oh. And then later was able to identify the young man. And the young man's, all of his legal team and himself really wanted to focus on how horrible this was for the young man, because he was this upstanding.
Wasn't he a football player?
Yeah, like he had this, like he was going to a prestigious school or something and sort of had his whole life ahead of him. But this person was really ruining his life by charging him with sexual assault. And
it's a great
like
example.
he didn't really understand that he was sexually assaulting the person or something like that, because, they weren't aware enough to fight off.
Just having sex with her while she was
like completely unconscious. But it and I remember reading it, and even though I was horrified by all the details in his behavior, there was something in me that when it was presented from his viewpoint, like, wow, this is going to wreck his whole, this one moment of stupidity was going to ruin his entire life. And as soon as I kind of went there, I realized, wow, that's such prey behavior on my part, because this person's character allowed them to take advantage of a situation that they were going to destroy another human beings. They were going to do so much damage to this. His behavior chose to do so much damage to this completely innocent victim. And there are consequences to that, ideally, if justice is to occur. We cannot allow people to do this. But it was really fascinating that what they wanted to focus on is how much this was going to hurt him and his world. And, how it was going to diminish what he could contribute to as if she somehow pursuing this had hurt this situation. And how many times, like I just think about so many podcasts that we've talked about with sort of religious leaders. How many times is that woman seen as the person who's taking down this good person who just made a mistake or just...
And haven't we all made mistakes?
Yeah.
And
do you have to make it public?
Well, and why was she wearing that red cape? That red cloak? It was really, provocative. And he saw her from a distance. It looked really tasty.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is really that warped view of that predatory person presenting themselves as a victim. And as caretakers... prey are kind of the caretakers of the world. As soon as that caretaking part of yourself gets hooked, you do kind of want to take care of the victim. So here you have a real victim presenting themselves as angry and strong And, like, let's take that same example, suing the person and taking their own power, trying to take their power back. You're not feeling like they're the victim. And then you've got the perpetrator saying, like, poor me, my life is going to be ruined. You're destroying me. And your caretaker part of you goes, oh, their life's being ruined. This strong, powerful person
or
who's suing
angry
them.
person,
Yes.
an angry woman.
Yeah.
100%.
Honestly,
This loud mouth.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of, misogyny in that too.
Absolutely.
Like there's a angry woman, another angry woman, and then you add in a minority on top of that. Wow. You can't, she doesn't look like a victim.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she's angry because she's been assaulted or whatever.
Yeah, their lives have been ripped apart and shredded. And so now there is a phrase, I think it's called reactive emotional abuse. And I don't necessarily love that phrase. So it would be great, anybody listening who has a better phrase. But the idea behind reactive emotional abuse is that there is a difference between the abuse and, like, so let's say somebody is, pushing you. And every time you stand up, they push you and you maybe grab something heavy and hit them on the head with it. Because, after, 6 hours of getting pushed down, finally you lose it and you bash them. Well, it looks much worse on one level that you bash somebody in the head with something, right? Or that you maybe punched them or kicked them or did something. You look like the bad one. Well, I wasn't, there's no bruises on the person. Well, I just pushed them down. But now there is this new language as we're understanding coercive control legally a little bit more and socially, to kind of understand you can only tolerate this behavior for so long before you react. And I just don't love that word, the reactive emotional abuse, because self-protection, I feel like, shouldn't be called abuse, even though you fight back, like, and you might hurt the person. But I think that is I could be wrong, but I think that is the current term that's being used to suggest the behavior of the person who's fighting back against the predator. But I think we could do probably better in our language for that.
What would you say is a way to arm ourselves as the prey of the world, trying to be insightful in the way we navigate our lives to know when a person is a victim versus someone playing a victim?
That's a good question.
Does this person leave you emotionally exhausted, being the first thing? The second thing, are they always portraying themselves as a victim? Always. And the third thing is, are they always tapping into your caregiving mentality?
Yeah, we talked about that with flying monkeys.
Yeah.
So it's looking out whether or not you're being a flying monkey. In this situation, I would say, can the person who's a victim, if they say they're a victim, do they take any sort of responsibility? And I don't mean that if you've been assaulted in the corner, but even as somebody who is legitimately a victim, you can kind of reflect in that situation, like, I don't know what I could have done differently, right? And it doesn't mean that they deserved anything. You can dress the way you want to dress and walk down any street, but you have some ability to reflect. And I would say, do they gain anything from their victim status?
That's a good one.
If I have been assaulted on the street, I'm not gaining anything from that status. I am now having to fight for myself in the legal system or whatever, or even just recuperate or maybe get some mental health resources. But I would look at the people who claim, like wolves or predators, and they claim to be a victim. What do they gain from saying that? They may gain a legion of donations to their political campaign. They may gain some people who are going to ride on the streets for their account. They may gain a bunch of flying monkeys. Is there something they gain from this status as a quote unquote victim?
I think I think what they gain more than anything else is they gain not being seen as a predator.
Thank you. Yes.
Smart.
Yeah. I think predators don't want you to know they're predators. They want to hide, and they want to hide, they want to disguise themselves as the granny.
Or as another sheep, like, what is it? A wolf in sheep's clothing.
Absolutely.
There's so many of these stories about these particular predators.
Because if I can show you how I am the victim, if I can show you how, if I can trigger you to take care of me in any level, then you are going to get confused. You're not going to know what you're looking at, because on one hand, you're hearing these things maybe about me, but on the other hand, you're wanting to take care of me because I can't be a predator and a victim. So if I hide in the victim status, if I make this about how hard done I am and how sad I am and how hurt I am, then you are going to get really confused. It's going to be hard for you to hold me accountable if I am not taking any ownership and I'm the victim.
I think the confusion aspect is really good. So there is a sense of, I don't know, even in the story when we're reading it, she's like, wow, what big eyes you have. There's a confusion. This doesn't equate with who I know grandma to be.
Yeah.
Oh, what a big mouth, what big hands, all this stuff. Like, I'm confused.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm thrown off. Good. You're thrown off.
Yeah, and every time she has a worry, it's the answer is like, oh, it's okay. It's better.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's better I have big eyes. It's better I have, I'm hairy. These are good things.
These are good big teeth.
Yes. And I think that's where we do get caught up. We do get frozen because we get confused. We doubt ourselves. We don't know what to do with the fact that what we think and feel is different than what we're being told.
That's good.
And because, this is bad and wrong, but what I'm being told to feel is sorry for you.
Well, and the other thing I would say, if you're confused if whether or not a person is a victim or playing a victim, I would look at, if you bring something to them, do they attack you? Like if I say to somebody who I'm good friends with, the last time when you called me that name hurt my feelings. Well, you call me those names you do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's their response to those kind of interactions. So you could have a friend who you wonder, oh, they're so sweet and nice, but there's something off every time I bring anything up. And even in my situation, I can think of as a child saying, I don't like it when you say this. Well, you say that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a child. What? That's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying, like, I'm coming to you going, that hurt me. Well, I'm a victim too. I'm a victim too of you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's zero responsibility, zero accountability.
Okay, so zero accountability.
Yeah.
Is a huge one. And confusion.
And what do they have to potentially gain from being
what
a
do they
victim?
gain?
It's good.
Yeah.
And triggering your caretaking, and you seeing one thing and feeling another thing.
Yes.
So not really stopping to think about how dichotomous those two things are.
Yeah, and trusting your own intuition and your own boundaries and your own sense of agency.
Mm-hmm. It's our word for the day.
Agency, yeah. Thank you. And, it's just something to reflect upon. If you are in the world and you come across somebody who maybe has predatory aspects that you've kind of feel in your gut, and maybe there's a reason why we have these stories.
Well, and I think the other thing I would add to that list is, just because somebody comes across really confident about something, that you have a question and they have a very confident, clear answer, don't be scared to dig more. Don't be scared to push in, because they want you to be scared to push in. They that confidence, we tend to assume that we're wrong, or we buy into the confidence and we end up getting eaten and our basket of food too.
Well, and that would even, beg the kind of discussion of what would Red Riding Hood do if she had listened to her intuition? Does she keep asking the question and go, "You're a predator," or does she quietly back away and just leave? It would be a very interesting discussion, because it's like, how would you say that you need to push the buttons of the predator to say, no, you're a predator? Or do you just kind of go away and put a firm boundary between you and them?
It's interesting because it makes me think of like Little Red Riding Hood as, like, let's say, what big eyes you had. And he says, the better to see you with. Like, let's move on. If she's like, no. Your eyes look big, like bigger than my grandma's. Your eyes, those aren't my grandmother's eyes. But he moved on really quickly. And he was very confident. Yep, good to see you with. And next.
Yeah, I'm not really answering your question.
Yeah. But I wonder, for Little Red Riding Hood, because it's a story of the danger of strangers, it's kind of like, well, come to my car and let me, I have candy. What candy do you have? What does it look like? Where is it in your car? Can you bring it here to me?
Why is it in your car?
Why would I have to go with you to get the candy? Why don't you carry the candy? Because those questions are very dangerous for the predator, but very powerful for the prey to ask, to push the envelope. And I think as caretaking, sort of soft-natured people, oftentimes the prey doesn't want the predator to feel uncomfortable. And so they'll just go with what's said, especially when it's said in confidence. And so, had that line of questioning not been allowed to be dismissed, then maybe Little Red Riding Hood would have got to her point, which was,
we need to rewrite it.
Yeah. Absolutely. She doesn't get past the first question.
And she's like, I'm out of here.
She just says, wait a second, you're not my grandmother.
Yeah, I'm going to go get some people, and they're going to help me get my grandmother from
saw a hunter down the road.
I know. I think her grandmother was eaten by this point.
Yeah. I think some other dude comes down and rips open the belly of the wolf and gets them out. But
the grandmother pops out again.
Yeah, these great fairy tales. Thank you for joining us. We are so happy to share our world with you. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, we'd love to hear them. Please reach out. Check our social medias. Give us a thumbs up. We love your thumbs upness. Yep. It's amazing. And please watch us on YouTube and follow us wherever you can.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.